Hello everyone, I am Adam Arcanist, and today's video will be how to play Riftbound. So first, I'm going to go over some of the basic premises here. First, in order to build your deck, you can find some online at Built Over Archives, or you can build your own. This involves choosing a legend. And this over here is legend, as designated by this keyword, is Kaisa. Then, after you've chosen your legend, you need to fill it with these runes of these colors. So, for example, and you have 12 total runes in your deck. For example, you can do 6 Mind 6 Fury, 10 Mind 2 Fury, or 0 Mind 12 Fury. It is completely up to you on how many of each you do, as long as they are within the 2 different runes that your legend has. Here's an example of champion units. We'll go over later that there's a champion unit slot on the board itself, but you can see that these are not the legends, although they still say Kaisa. And notice how this is a Mind Kaisa, as designated by the blue coloring, as well as the symbol down here. And this is a Fury Kaisa on the right. You have the option to choose either one of these as your chosen champion, and you can have up to 3 in your deck. Notice that it says champion unit. Your up here is the energy cost of the unit. Over here is the might. In Riftbound, might is attack and HP at the exact same time. So for example, Kaisa here on the left has 6, which means she has 6 attack and 6 HP. Kaisa on the right has 4 might, so it's 4 attack and 4 HP. Down here, there's keywords that are in green. For example, this one is ganking, which means she can move from one battlefield to another. In Riftbound, units that have ganking have that advantage, as normally units have to move from base to battlefield to base to battlefield whenever they want to switch between battlefields, but ganking units do not. And we'll go over that later in an example. Over here is the power that's required to play a card. Power is a rune that gets recycled in your deck. So you need a 1 mind power to play this Kaisa. That means you have to take a mind rune, ideally you exhaust it beforehand to get the energy, and then you recycle the rune by putting it to the bottom of your rune deck, and then you generate 1 mind power. We'll go over it later in an example, but I just wanted to explain what the things mean on the cards. Over here, you see these a lot on the cards, and it confused me at first, but Kaisa, the survivor right here, says you may pay 1 energy, is the white symbol, and 1 fury power as an additional cost to have me enter ready. I thought this just meant 1 fury power, but it in fact means 1 energy and 1 fury power. So you need to exhaust a rune of any kind, or tap it if you're from Magic the Gathering, and then recycle or put to the bottom of the rune deck that you have a red fury rune. Building out the rest of your deck, there are some things you need to know. You have 40 total cards in your deck. This can be any combination of spells and units and champions, but you need 40 cards, not including your legend. You can only have a maximum of 3 cards of each. So for example, you can only have 3 Blazing Scorchers, 3 Dr. Mundos, 3 Seal of Rages, etc. And like I said earlier, you can have any combination of each. I wanted to highlight over here that there are 2 different speeds of spells. There are actions and there are reactions. Actions can start a chain. There is chaining when it comes to spells, moving units, that sort of thing, and showdowns. So an action can be played first to start a chain, but an action cannot be played after. Only an action can start a chain. The rest has to be made up of reactions. As you can see, Defy down here is a reaction. Counters a spell that costs no more than 4 energy and no more than 1 power. Now, this is not the greatest example because Falling Comet costs 5 energy, so Defy wouldn't work. But if Falling Comet was 4 energy, Your opponent could play this, and then you could follow up with a Defy. Next is battlefields. Each player has 3 battlefields in their deck. In best of 1 series, each player draws a random battlefield to play the game. And in a best of 3 series, each player can choose the battlefield they want for that round. Battlefields have different effects. As you can see, back alley bar has when a unit moves here, give it +1 might this turn. And an altar to unity has when you hold here, play a 1 might recruit unit token to your base. And these aren't counted in your 40 deck total. So what is the objective of Riftbound? The first player to score 8 points wins the game. You can do this by conquering a battlefield, holding a battlefield, your opponent runs out of cards, or another card condition. These are all things that generates you 1 point. The 8th point is a special condition. You do not get points from conquering 1 battlefield. You must hold a battlefield through your opponent's turn, conquer both battlefields in the same turn, do another different card specific condition, or if your opponent runs out of cards and has to reshuffle his deck, you do get that final point. So let's get on and actually how to play in an example. Over here on the left side is where you will have your rune deck. Your trash can be right here. This is where your legend will go, and you actually get 1 slot to have your chosen champion sit in. So you automatically, and this acts as your hand. So you have a Jinx here that's basically already in your hand. And then your main deck will be down here. Obviously, you can put stuff where you want to. This is just the playmat that Riot Games is doing. So just remember that this unit is playable at all times, and your opponent knows what it is, and that is just always available to you. And you only have 1 of your units here. For example, you do not have all 3 of your chosen champion units copies here, but you could have your other 2 in your deck, or this could be your only one that you know you'll get access to. So to start off, you will draw 4 cards. You are allowed to mulligan 2 cards in Riftbound. You can mulligan 2, 0, or even 1. Now, you do not get to change your selection based on what you draw. So you can't choose 1, draw a card, and then realize you want to change your second one. Mulliganing is putting a unit or a card at the bottom of your deck and drawing another card for it. So for example, you might not want this 8 cost unit turn 1 because it's very expensive, so you can mulligan it, put it at the bottom of your rune deck, and draw another. In this case, or this example, you drew Misfortune, which is a better cost to start off early. Then you will draw 2 runes to start if you are the first player. The second player in 1 versus 1 will draw 3 runes. So let's zoom out and look at this overall. For this example, I had player 1 draw 2 cards, and let's say they couldn't play anything. If you are the player on the right side, you will draw 3 runes. You can see that your hand is here, your legend, your Jinx unit ready to play. Let's say you wanted to play this Legion Rearguard. Looking over at the left side, it's 2 cost with 2 might. When units enter the battlefield, or your base, I should say your base, they enter in exhausted, unless they have Accelerate, which says you may pay 1 energy and 1 fury power as an additional cost to have me enter ready. So if we played this, we tap 2 runes, but since you are wanting to have it be entered ready now, which is this way, we have to tap all 3, and we have to generate a fury power, and the way to do that is to recycle 1 fury rune to the bottom of your rune deck. And now that is gone, Legion Rearguard has entered ready. If you are wanting to score points early with Legion Rearguard, you can then move the unit now that it is entered ready. You have to tap units when you are moving them. So for example, from your hand to your base, it would tap it and then it can't move again. But since we readied Legion Rearguard, we can then move it and it would end up on the battlefield exhausted and score you 1 point. When you move onto a battlefield that's open, you conquer it and you get 1 point. Now, if it switches over to your opponent's turn and your opponent has the Jinx Demolitionist legend, or I'm sorry, unit, they may want to play this. So if it's the start of their turn, I didn't draw it out, but they are going to draw a card and then they are going to channel 2 runes. And I just blew this up here so that you can see it easier. They are wanting to play this unit. They cannot play it directly to the battlefield unless, that they have it ready. You can only move units from a battlefield or from your hand to a battlefield you own. If not, then they have to go from your hand to your base, then base to battlefield. Units cannot go directly to the battlefield unless you own that battlefield itself, or you enter them ready. But you'll see in this example, so we want to play Jinx. We recycled this red power because she costs 1 red power here. Or I'm sorry, we tapped all 4, so we have 4 energy. And then since we want to enter her as ready, we're going to recycle both of these runes because we have to, in order to play her, recycle 1 rune. And if we want her ready, we have to recycle another Fury rune to generate 2 Fury power. She then can move here ready and then move from here to the battlefield since she's ready, and then she'll be exhausted when she enters. This will start a showdown. Multiple units can actually get moved onto a battlefield at the same time. For example, if you had 3 readied units on your base, you could move all 3 of them to here at the exact same time. You cannot move multiple units from one battlefield to another. You'd have to go from battlefield to base and then back to battlefield. If a unit has ganking over here and you have 1 unit with ganking, 1 unit on your base, you could move both those at the same time, assuming that they are ready. So if we look at the stats here for this, we have Jinx when she gains 2 might when she's an attacker, which she is. And then Back Alley Barkeep also grants +1 might this turn to units that get there. So +2 would be 6, +1 more is 7. Trifarian Rearguard, since it's not his turn anymore, he does not get this +1 might from Back Alley Barkeep. So he's at 2 might. This means that Jinx would kill Trifarian Legion Rearguard and end up with, she would have 5 HP left over. After combat resolves, Jinx would heal back to full HP. So you would want to make sure you get out your spells while the combat is going on so Jinx does not heal back up to full. And since you conquered this and Legion Rearguard is dead, you would score a point which is indicated up here. So let's say you have 2 versus 2 in one battlefield. Let's say that this player over here had these 2 units on, and these 2 units, Jinx and Misfortune, were moving onto the battlefield at the exact same time. How does the damage get distributed? Actually, it would be these people attacking. I do this first. Anyways, so if the people on the right are attacking the person on the left on this battlefield, and they move both these units at the same time, you will see that you have to deal, you cannot split your damage unless you kill the unit. So you could not deal 2 damage to Misfortune and 3 to Jinx. You have to kill the unit before the damage is dealt to anything else. And you do this by totaling the might on both sides and then distributing it. So for example, since both of those attacked there, Jinx would be dead and Misfortune would be left with 1 HP. But then it's the other opponent's turn to decide where the damage is going. You can see that they have 8 might in this example. And I'm not doing the +1 this turn. But Jinx can attack this unit and kill it because Jinx has 4 might. And Misfortune can attack the other unit and has 4 might after this This 4 here is just to indicate that after combat resolves, Misfortune will heal back up to the might that she was originally, which would just leave you with 1 Misfortune left at the battlefield, and you would get 1 point for conquering if you were this MF player. So I explained a little bit earlier about stacks and chains, but this is another example with them. Actions cannot be played on top of reactions. So for example, if you had this Legion rear guard and you wanted to play Cleave on it to give it +3 might, you could do that, and that starts a chain. If your opponent responds with Wind Wall to counter a spell, this spell would not go through. But let's say you were playing Fury and Calm or Red and Green, and you played your own Wind Wall. This Wind Wall could cancel their Wind Wall and cancel Cleave. And in this order, you would end up Wind Walling their Wind Wall. You would have Cleave damage, or your Cleave spell go through, and Legion Rearguard would gain might. So Wind Wall cancels Wind Wall, your Cleave would still go through. And now he would be at 5 might. I hope this little example helped of how Riftbound can be played. I'll probably make a more in-depth guide later. If you guys liked it, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.